the other time is whether you say v'tein bracha or you say v'tein talamot l'bracha. So the main difference for the Ashkenazim, they're just switching from saying v'tein bracha to v'tein talamot l'bracha. So it's a much shorter switch. It's a much bigger switch for the Sephardim today.
Educate them on going up to Torah. They had a strategy going on. That's for me.
Yisrael first, go ahead, Levi. Then you can't. Right, you're a Levi. Right, you could go first if there's no Kohen, but you can't go after Yisrael. Oh, but Ashkenazim, they allow a Levi to go first. I don't know about the Sephardim. Meaning, when there's the Kohen has to go first. Morning, good to see you, Stanley. Okay. You say hello to your dad for me. Okay, so yesterday we were saying that Yovel, the laws of Yovel and the laws of Rosh Hashanah are directly connected, right? We said the same Amidah that we say for the Musaf of Rosh Hashanah is the same Amidah we say for the Musaf of Yovel of Yom Kippur. And we also said yesterday that the same blows of the shofar, what we blow on the shofar in Rosh Hashanah, the same what we blow on Rosh Hashanah, that's the same thing that we're going to blow on Yom Kippur. It's going to be the same Yom Kippur of Yovel. We said it also would be the same sounds. And the Gemara said we might have thought that the Kohanim and the Leviim, since they have different halachot regarding Yovel, we're now on 29a, 29a3. So since there's different laws regarding Yovel for Kohanim and Leviim, that there's certain laws of Yovel they are not subject to. So you might have thought that so too regarding the blowing of the shofar, they're also different. Maybe they will not want to say, but maybe they will not have the mitzvah of the shofar the same way that we have the mitzvah of maybe on Rosh Hashanah, maybe the Yisraelim, the non-Kohen Levi, who have the same laws of Yovel. Yovel applies in all aspects. So then they would have the laws of the shofar would apply to them. However, the Kohanim and the Leviim, the Gemara said, where there are certain differences regarding Yovel, that they're not subject to certain laws of Yovel. You might have thought so too. They're not subject to the laws of blowing the shofar. Maybe there won't be that responsibility of blowing the shofar, since shofar has similarities to Yovel. So anybody who's obligated in all the laws of Yovel is obligated in shofar. But someone who is not obligated in all the laws of Yovel, you might think he's not obligated in shofar. Therefore, that's why the bright that comes to teach you, and nevertheless, they're obligated. Good morning, Simon. They're obligated in the mitzvah of shofar. That's the chidush. And even though, it says that, let's say we said if they sold the house from one of their homes from the walled cities, they are able to redeem it forever. Even though Yisrael, who's non-Kohen Levi, who sells his house, he only has 1 year, the first year of the sale, to redeem it. And this law of redemption is connected to the laws of Yovel. And yet it doesn't apply to Kohanim, because the Kohen could redeem his house that he sold all the time. So we see he has certain differences regarding Yovel. He's not subject to all the general laws of Yovel. So therefore, we need to tell us, nevertheless, he's obligated in the law of the shofar. He's still obligated in blowing the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. Okay, now the Gemara continues. 29A3 on the right side. Misha chetze eved v'chetze ben chored. Someone who is half a slave and half free, right? So we said what happened. Let's say there was two people owned somebody, and those two people that owned someone, amen. He owned him, and then he sold this. He freed. He gave the slave, one of the partners, one of the owners in the slave, wrote a document of freedom to the slave. So now the slave is half free and half a slave, because there's another owner. So the two people that had owned the slave. So each one has 50% stake in the slave, and now one person gave up his stake in the slave. He freed the slave, his part, but the other part is still there. So we said that slave. Now this slave was a non-Jew, was bought by a Jew, was obligated in mitzvot like a woman, right? Obligated in mitzvah like a woman. When it's obligated in mitzvah like a woman, and a woman is not obligated on a Torah level to go ahead and shofar. Woman is exempt from shofar. Now a lady could go. We have a custom that the ladies go hear the shofar, but she's not obligated from any Torah level to hear the shofar. So this person who is half of him is obligated, and half of him is not obligated. But 50% of him has the status of a woman, meaning to say, regarding mitzvot, someone who is a slave, who was a non-Jew, who was bought by a Jew, goes to the mikveh, and he also has to have a circumcision. He's obligated in mitzvot now like a woman at the level of the woman's obligation in mitzvot. He's not obligated in mitzvah like a regular Jew from birth. Only when he gets completely free will he be obligated in all the mitzvahs like a man. But until then, as a slave, he's obligated only in mitzvahs like a woman. Now, the same way a lady cannot blow a shofar for a man, because a man is obligated by the Torah to blow a shofar, and a lady is not. In order for someone to blow for someone else, you have to have at least equal obligation or more. And since the lady is not, is a lesser responsibility, doesn't have that obligation, therefore she cannot blow the shofar for the man. So to a slave, an Evet Kanani, even since he's obligated in mitzvahs like a woman, he also can't blow a shofar for a man. Then he will be totally free, and then he'd be obligated like every other Jew, and then he could go ahead and blow the shofar for another man. What? Now he's completely, meaning he's a complete convert, and therefore he's totally Jewish. Now, but we said in the Breita that if he's a half an Eved, because half of him is an Eved, part of him is a slave, so part of him is not obligated. If part of him is not obligated, so he cannot blow for someone who is obligated. Even though there's 50% of him is obligated, because he's 50% free. Mr. Haber, am I clear? He's 50% free, but he has another 50% is not free. So he has 50% of him is obligated in the mitzvah. 50% of him is not obligated in the mitzvah. So he can't blow for someone else because that person is hearing from someone who's only 50% obligated, and he's hearing the sound. 50% of the sound that he's hearing is from someone who is not obligated. Is that clear, Ralph? What? Like a woman's status, exactly. So the Gemara says that's what it means. He can't blow for another. Let's say there's another guy. He has a colleague who's also half and half free and half a slave. The 50% of him that's a slave cannot cover the 50% of his friend who's not a slave, and therefore he can't even blow for another guy who's half and half, and for sure he can't blow for someone who's totally free. Amar Rav Huna, Rav Huna says ula'atzmo motzi. Rav Huna says, but he could blow for himself. He could blow for himself. This Chatzi Eved Chatzi Mechorin. Good morning, Mark.
Good morning, Rabbi.
We're talking about the guy who is half free and half a slave. And this guy who's half free and half a slave, 50% is obligated in the midst of shofar, 50% is not. So Rav Huna says that he could blow shofar for himself. Even though the only part of him that's chayav, he has the 50% he's a slave, and 50% he's not a slave, but he has the ability to blow for himself, and that blowing for himself will cover that part of him that's free. That part of him that's free will become who has a biblical obligation of shofar, will be able to fulfill his obligation by himself blowing the shofar for himself. And the Gemara is going to challenge challenges. Look what the Gemara is going to say. So, Maskil Rav Nachman Rav Huna, Ma'ishna la'achirim dulo. Why can't this guy who's 50-50, 50% obligated, 50 without turning the page on 29A4, the guy who's 50% obligated and 50% not obligated, he can't blow for someone else. Why can't he blow for someone else? Because because the part of him that's a slave who's blowing, because 50% of him is a slave that's blowing, cannot cover someone else who is free. So too the Gemara says, la'atzmo nami, for he himself also.
But someone who's not biblically chayav, could he blow for them like a woman or a child?
Again, a woman. Again, could he blow for them? You're saying? Yeah, yes. He could blow for a woman if he's equal status, but he's either equal. He's equal and plus. He's at least that because he's obligated mitzvah like a woman. He could blow for a woman, but the Gemara is challenging. He should not be able to blow for himself because for himself he has 50% of him that's biblically obligated in the shofar. So the same way, 50 when he can't blow for someone else because part of him is exempt. That's doing the blowing, and that part of him that's exempt cannot cover someone who's obligated. So even for himself, when part of him is obligated, part of him is exempt, he should not be able to blow. His part of him that's an eved, that's a slave, should not be able to cover the part of him that's obligated. Rav Nachman says, Rav Nachman says, for himself, he cannot go ahead and motzi, he cannot cover. Now, so even though he can't, here's an interesting phenomenon. He can't perform the mitzvah by himself, but he could get but if he listens to someone else who's obligated, then he would be able to fulfill the mitzvah because he heard from someone that's totally obligated, and he would be able to fulfill the mitzvah. That is what that's the phenomenon. This is the trivia question. Who is the guy that can't do the mitzvah himself, but can be performed from someone else? This is the guy. The chatziyah, this type of mitzvah that requires hearing. If it requires hearing the shofar, he cannot blow the shofar for himself. Now, the other mitzvot, let's say taking a lulav.
Or for anyone else.
Say it again.
So he can't blow for himself or anyone else.
Exactly. And the rabbis talk about, what about taking a lulav? The taking a lulav, he did, even though part of him, when you take a lulav, part of you you're chayav, and part of you you're patur. Let's say he himself wants to take a lulav. Yet he will get the mitzvah, many will say, because he did the mitzvah. However, when it comes shofar, when the main part of the mitzvah shofar is hearing the shofar, therefore, if he hears from a part of him, so if he hears the shofar from a part of him that blew the shofar was not obligated, so therefore if he blows the shofar himself, he cannot fill the mitzvah. But when it comes to, let's say, taking a lulav, or that, he would get credit for that mitzvah. That's what many will say. Okay. Tanya Nami Hachi, we looked at a brighter like that. Someone who is a chatzi, if it's half and half, He cannot blow even for himself. Tani Ava Bereder of Zera. Ava, the son of Zera, says the following. Kol brachot kulam. All brachot ha-mitzvot. Afa pisha yotza. Let's say Kiddush on Shabbat. Friday, let's say Kiddush Friday night. Well, you have all brachot, or let's say brachat ha-mitzvot. Asher Kiddushan mitzvotav v'tzivanu. You want to say the bracha for someone. Asher Kiddushan mitzvotav v'tzivanu al divrei Torah. There's a mitzvah to say brachat Torah. So you could say, and let's say there's someone else that does not know how to say brachat Torah. You could say for them, even though you already said did the mitzvah, you already said the bracha. You could go ahead and say it for someone else. Let's say someone doesn't know how to make a bracha on a lulav. Technically, the Gemara is saying you could say the bracha, even though you already said your bracha on the lulav. You could tell him, listen, I'll say the bracha for you. But now we're back to regular person. You could go ahead and say the bracha for someone else. If it's a bracha of mitzvah, it's a bracha of mitzvah. You could go ahead. We'll see this difference between there's different types of categories of blessings. There's a bracha called brachat ha-mitzvah. It's called brachat ha-nenin, a bracha on benefit, on pleasure. Let's say you want to go have an ice cream. You want to make a bracha on ice cream. If I don't plan on eating ice cream, you're planning on eating an ice cream. I can't just say a bracha. I say shehakol and I'll cover you if I'm not eating the ice cream. But because I don't have that responsibility. The Chafetz Chaim in the Mishnah Berurah says beautifully, every Jew is responsible for each other. I'm responsible for you. So something that's a mitzvah that you have to do, it's as if I have that obligation to do. And therefore, the same way, if I didn't do a mitzvah yet, I say a bracha on the mitzvah. Even when I did the mitzvah, but you have, even I did the mitzvah, but since you didn't do the mitzvah and you need my help with the blessing, I could say the blessing, but I have like an obligation to say it. But when you're having a pleasure, who says you need to have that pleasure? You're not obligated to have that pleasure. You want to have a drink. You want to have a soda. Okay, you're not. If you don't want to, you don't have to have the soda. So if you don't have to have the soda, so it's not something you have to do. So I'm not obligated. There's no responsibility. I'm not obligated to say I don't have that obligation for you in that because you yourself don't have an obligation. When you have an obligation to do that mitzvah, you don't have an obligation to drink. You don't have an obligation to have that snack. So therefore, that type of blessing, which is not compelling that the rabbis put on you or the Torah put on you, that type of blessing, I have no responsibility for you for that, and therefore I cannot say that blessing for you unless I plan on also eating for the first time or drinking for the first time. Technically, even though it's better that people should say their own bracha, but technically I would be able to cover you if you're not able to say the bracha. If I plan on eating and I didn't eat yet. But something but if it's a mitzvah, even though I already performed it, I could go say the mitzvah. I could go say the bracha. I blew shofar in the morning, and I want to blow shofar for someone else. I could say the bracha again. For another man, I'm blowing for another man. I could say bracha again. But he has an obligation to hear the shofar, right, Mr. Haber? I have an obligation to make. I'm responsible for him. We all responsible, and therefore I'm able to say the bracha. We're going to see in the Gemara that there's a circumstance for pleasure that I could say a bracha, even though I don't need it for myself, even though I already ate. That would be for training children, the Gemara is going to say. Morning, Asaf. To train children, the Gemara is going to say, I have the ability to say the bracha in order to train them, even though it's a bracha on a pleasure. We'll see more of that. So that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, Kol brachat kulam. All blessings, around 29a3, 29a4, I'm sorry. All the blessings, even though you feel your obligation, motzi, you can cover the other guy. Chutz mi brechat halechem or brechat hayayin. Let's say let's say breakfast. You want to have a bagel. You want to have a bagel for breakfast. You want to have we say hamotzi, and we're going to even see, even for Shabbat, the law is that even though there's a mitzvah to have bread on Shabbat, but yet I cannot I could say hamotzi for you if I did not eat bread yet. But if I already said my hamotzi on the bread, then I can't just say hamotzi for you. Okay? So bread is like a category of pleasure, of benefit. And birkat hayayin, I want to have wine, I want to have soda. If you didn't say a blessing yet, I already said my blessing on my wine this morning, but we're going to see this difference between wine this morning and wine of kiddush. We're going to see, because wine of kiddush, we're going to consider it more like mitzvah, and therefore I could say the boy pray geffen for you, even though I already said kiddush before, and now you come into the house, you're my guest, and I want to say kiddush again. I already said I could say the geffen again. That's not a problem. But a geffen, not in the form of kiddush, I cannot say a geffen for you unless I did not say the bracha yet for myself, and I plan on drinking some wine. Chutz birkat halechem birkat hayayin. Lim lo yotza. If I did not yet fulfill my obligation of the bread, I did not say hamotzi yet, I did not eat bread yet, then motzi, I could go ahead and say hamotzi for you. I could go ahead and say a boy pray geffen for you. If I did not have wine yet, we could sit down. We're sitting down together, having a meal. I could say hamotzi for you. Even today, I could say hamotzi for you for breakfast. If I want to technically say hamotzi and cover you, the same way on Shabbat, I say hamotzi for you because I did not have bread yet. But if I had bread already and a guest walks into my house on Shabbat, even on Shabbat, I can't just say hamotzi again. We have to help the guest say the bracha himself. Right, I say so. Someone who's not learned, I cannot say the bracha hamotzi for him if I already said the hamotzi for myself. But if I say it again, what I mean to say, if I didn't eat bread yet, and I want to eat bread now, let's say this morning, if I want to have breakfast, I want to have a bagel for breakfast, and I'm going to say hamotzi on the bagel. I can say hamotzi and cover you. No, let's say I didn't eat yet. If I didn't eat yet the bagel yet, I'm starting, and since I haven't, I have a responsibility to say for myself, because I need to say the motzi for myself. I'm obligated to have motzi. So then I could also simultaneously, once I'm saying it for myself this morning for breakfast, I can also have you in mind technically and cover you, who also needs the bracha on that motzi.
Just because the person doing the bracha has already eaten bread.
No, they're not eating bread.
It's not eaten.
Right, because if you have eaten bread already, you cannot recite the blessing a second time. A hamotzi, because if I ate 9 o'clock this morning, I'm sitting down for breakfast, and I said hamotzi at 9 o'clock, and at 9:05, a friend of mine walks in, and now he needs to have bread. He wants to have bread. He has to say his own hamotzi. I can't now go ahead and just say I'm going to say hamotzi, and I'll have him in mind. Even if the guy doesn't have to say, it would seem to me you have to say it along with him. Help him out, show him what to do, but you're not able to cover him. Because you don't have that level of, you don't have an obligation to say that hamotzi. He has an obligation to say hamotzi. When he has an obligation to do something, but his obligation to say hamotzi is only because he decided he wants to have bread. If he doesn't want to have a bagel for breakfast, he doesn't have a bagel. He has to have a bagel for breakfast. But it's not like he was mitzvah told him he has to. It's not like, see, the bracha of matzah, right? There's a bracha on Pesach. We say bracha ta Hashem ala achilat matzah, right? That bracha I could definitely say for him. Even though I already said the bracha, I already had my matzah. I had it in my bread, right? But good, very good. Let's understand that there are two blessings. There are two blessings that we say on matzah morning. There's two blessings that we say on matzah on Pesach. We say hamotzi lechem min haaretz, and we say asher kiddushanu mitzvotav v'tzivonu al achilat matzah. The second bracha is automatically falls into the category of a bracha of mitzvah. It's not about pleasure. It's like the same way you say a bracha on your tefillin. Technically, what the Gemara is saying, if you're putting on tefillin, and I already put on my tefillin, I already said my bracha on the tefillin, and if you don't, you need help with your bracha, I could say the bracha on the tefillin, what comes out from the Gemara, and for you, morning. Why could I say the bracha on tefillin for you? Because since I am responsible for you, you're responsible for me. And because of that responsibility creates like I have an obligation. That's the interesting thing we say about the tefillin mark. If let's say this morning there's a guy comes into shul and he said, Rabbi, I don't know how to say the bracha on tefillin. According to this Gemara, I can actually say the bracha for him. I can tell him, listen to my blessing. I'm going to cover you. But here, according to the Gemara, I don't even need to. According to the Gemara here, I don't even need to be in position. I don't have to do anything. I could just say the bracha for him, and not for myself. Even though I said the bracha for myself, because I am responsible. According to this Gemara, we'll have to look up more in the halakha. But I already said. Right, I already said my bracha on the tefillin. I prayed an hour ago. I already finished. I could say the bracha for him. Why can I say the bracha for him? The v'chidush. We'll have to look up in the Shulchan Aruch. He doesn't even have to repeat it. He even has to repeat it. Why does he have to repeat it? Because I have a responsibility for him. I am obligated. What makes me obligated? What do you mean, Rabbi? You already put on your tefillin. But I am obligated to make sure this person does his mitzvah. So if I'm obligated that this person does his mitzvah, so therefore I have an obligation to say this bracha. Right. Now the question is we have to see if this is exact according to, we have to look at Shulchan Aruch how it comes out that way in practice. Because that's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says, Kala brachot kulam, all the brachos are mitzvah, even though you already fulfilled your mitzvah, you could go ahead and cover the other guy. That's what the Gemara will have to look more in the if this is the actual application. Mitzvah, right. Mitzvah, right. There's a difference between a mitzvah and pleasure. But if you are having a coffee, which is a bracha of pleasure, no one obligated you. It's not a bracha of mitzvah. It's a bracha of having pleasure. That the only way I could say the bracha for you, if I did not yet say a bracha yet, and I'm planning on having that coffee, then I could say the bracha for you. But if I already had I said my bracha on my coffee, and I don't need another bracha on my coffee, and now I'm not obligated to say a bracha. I'm not. That's not considered a bracha of mitzvah, and therefore you would have to say your own bracha. Is everything clear what we're saying over here, everybody? Yes. Very good. Exactly. That's going to be the Gemara's question. The Gemara's question is going to be exactly what you said. How do you like that? The Gemara's question, by the way, just on that note, everybody's invited. Tomorrow night, we're going to have a siyum. Everyone's invited to be at dinner, 6:30 here in the shul. Everyone's invited downstairs, 6:30 dinner. Kiddush has both aspects. It's about I'm enjoying it, but there's a mitzvah that's obligating me to say the Kiddush. Meaning the rabbi said on Shabbat day you have to make Kiddush. On Friday night also the Torah, according to the Torah, you have this talk about the holiness of Shabbat, and there's an obligation, but there's an obligation to say a bracha Friday night. Also, we have brachos we have to say on the Kiddush. So the fact that we have a mitzvah to go ahead and we are obligated, I can't just get away without saying the Kiddush. I could get away without saying drinking the coffee. I don't need to drink the coffee. No one's obligating me to drink the coffee. But the rabbis are obligating me to go ahead and to have Kiddush. And the Kiddush is over the cup of wine. So even though the bracha of Bor Pri Gefen, so here comes this phenomenon, that it depends if it's weekday or Shabbat. On a weekday, if you're having a drink of wine, I can't go ahead, and if I already drank my wine, I said my bracha on the wine, I don't have any more an obligation to say a bracha on the wine, and therefore I cannot say a geffen for you if I already said my bracha. However, on Shabbat or holiday, even though I said my geffen already, let's say Shabbat morning, or Yom Tov daytime. What is the meat and the potatoes of the Kiddush of Shabbat? The meat and potatoes Shabbat morning is the Bor Pri Gefen. If you go ahead and you walk in, a rabbi saying Kiddush, and you miss the whole first part Shabbat day, and he's up to Savim Ranan, technically, and you heard the Bor Pri, not Friday night, it doesn't work Friday night. Friday night, you gotta have this, there's two brachot Friday night. There's a Gefen, there's a whole Makal, there's a whole bracha. But Shabbat day, the meat and potatoes is their geffen. That's really the main kiddush. We embellish it with those psukim that we say, and we should say. But technically, you covered if you heard the geffen. So that is the mitzvah. So therefore, even though I said kiddush, I heard kiddush, I drank from the wine, and then my neighbor walks in, and he needs to hear kiddush. I could say the kiddush again, even though the kiddush is really that bracha. Now we look at it more like a bracha. It's coming as mitzvah, which is, and when my neighbor has an obligation to say kiddush, so since he has an obligation to say kiddush, that makes it your obligation is my obligation. It's a fascinating concept. There's even a Rabbeinu Yonah. The Rabbeinu Yonah says, listen to Mark, listen, right, and listen to this, Mark. Rabbeinu Yonah says, on a Torah level, if you had a beautiful meal, bread and everything, and you were satiated, beautiful meal, and you have a mitzvah in our Torah to say Birkat HaMazon. Torah mitzvah, L'chalta v'savata v'rachta. And I ate nothing. I ate nothing. And I walk in, and you say, Rabbi, could you say Birkat HaMazon for me? On a Torah level, I could say Birkat HaMazon for you. I ate nothing. I'm not eating it. Without eating any, on a Torah level, I could say Birkat HaMazon for you. Why? Because if you're obligated to say Birkat HaMazon, I'm obligated to. I am responsible to make sure that you don't sin. And you're responsible to make sure that I don't sin. And if a person does not fulfill his responsibility of saying Birkat HaMazon, it's a sin. Because you're not following what you were told to do. But the Rabbanan say, but the rabbis say, you can't do it that way. Rabbi said, they said, I have to at least have a kazayit of bread. Even I don't have to have the full satiation of eating a full meal, a real full meal. I can have just one slice of bread, even though that will make a rabbinic obligation upon me of Birkat HaMazon. And you have a biblical obligation because you were satiated, but I still could cover you, but I could still, the general rule is a rabbinic obligation cannot cover what? A biblical. I'm only rabbinically obligated, and you're biblically obligated. A rabbinic can't cover a biblical. But I am now biblically obligated as well because of the old rule of responsibility. And that rule allows me, once I have, the rabbi said, if I had a kazayat of bread, I could cover you. Yes. On which time? On Shabbat, is about the week. Birkat HaMazon. Again, but you never needed to have the bread. Again, you never needed to have the bread. Very, very good. So Marcus pointed out. Let's point Mark's point. Yeah.
But go to is the kiddush. Go back to kiddush. Now I could say it for him
100 times. You can say kiddush 100 different people.
Do I have to do the second time?
No, technically, I can say kiddush. Someone has to drink. I don't have to. At least we say the general rule is when you make kiddush on Shabbat, it says that if for sure if you did not fulfill your obligation yet, let's say we're all coming to for a Shabbat meal, and I want to make the husband's making kiddush. The one who's making the kiddush is supposed to be the one who's drinking from the kiddush. I mean, Friday night you make kiddush, and you don't say just let everybody else taste from it, right? Even though let's say in halacha we would definitely say that the person who's saying the kiddush should definitely be the one who's also drinking from the kiddush. But it could be, right? But it could be that if you already said the kiddush already, and you're ready where you would say, this we would have to check. It could be it's sufficient that the other people drink from it. You might not need for yourself. What? You already drank. Could be that just they should drink for you. You're covering them. And Right, so maybe you should, maybe you might not need to, you might not need to drink as long as they drink from it. But I think Mark's point, what do you want to say?
Something like coffee, but you're not obligated, you can't say.
I cannot say a shakal now for you, only if I'm doing it together technically, and I didn't have coffee yet. But even that, not everybody, but even that, there might be a difference between coffee, which is a light type of drink, and drinking wine and bread. Meaning to say, the case of the Gemara is when we're coming, if I'm coming to have bread with you, so bread is like more formal. We're coming to eat together. We're coming to drink together. So maybe that's the more ideal type of place to say a bracha, to be motzi. For me to say a bracha for you, if I did not eat yet, I cover you more in a thing where we're coming together. But when in a serious fashion. But when a coffee is something that's light. It's not like we're coming to drink. We're going out to drink. We're going to eat. So therefore, it would not be recommended that with all, I'm going to say a shackle for you, and you, instead of you saying the shackle, I would say, even though I didn't say a shackle yet for myself, everyone should say their own shackle. Don't say, okay, just let the other guy say. But for sure, if someone does not know how to say the shackle, and you didn't say your shackle yet, you definitely could just say it. Have it in mind. Have a great day, everybody.